Chinese animation is an interesting contradiction. It is very ambitious and colorful, but also it fails to meet its expectations more often than not. To understand this contradiction in Chinese animation, one needs to return to the source, and that source is the Wan brothers. Their first feature film, Princess Iron Fan, was released in 1941 and features many of their characteristic trademarks. The Wan brothers relied heavily on Chinese culture to make their films. They also relied on a technique known as rotoscoping, which involved filming live actors and tracing over them with cartoon models. This was done not only to save costs, but to provide more realistic movement. Princess Iron Fan was a technical achievement of its time, but it was not without its problems. As one can see when comparing the film to other animation at the time. For example, 1941 Superman cartoons by the Fleischer brothers. These cartoons also used rotoscoping, but used many more frames and higher quality animation, as well as color, to produce higher quality cartoons. Also for comparison is the 1941 short film Donald's Decision by the Walt Disney Company. Donald's Decision does not feature rotoscoping, but instead hand-animated characters, which provides more fluid movement and more exciting action. It also allows for better comedic timing. The Wan brothers did improve their craft, as evidenced in later films and short films. Returning to color and using more fluid animation resulted in their pièce de résistance, Havoc in Heaven, released in 1964. The film was based on the story Journey to the West, much like Princess Iron Fan, their earlier masterpiece was. Havoc in Heaven was a technical achievement, featuring full-color animation and less rotoscoping than before. It also featured more of the Wan brothers' typical trademarks, including elements drawn from Beijing opera, including music, sound effects, and movement. It was a hit amongst the Chinese people when released, and is still a favorite of many Chinese people today. However, in comparing it to other films, it falls a little short. For comparison, this is a clip from 1963's The Sword and Stone, released by Walt Disney Animation. The Sword and the Stone does not rely on rotoscoping, and has much more movement and characters. The animators are also able to use several objects at once, with equal precision, as opposed to the static characters in the background of Havoc in Heaven. China moved into computer animation with 2005's Through the Mobius strip. Considered another technical achievement for China, it nevertheless fell short of many expectations. It did debut at Cannes, however, but was not released too widely outside of Europe. The main problems with Through the Mobius strip is the outdated computer animation. For comparison, 2001's Final Fantasy The Spirits Within has much farther superior graphics, but suffers from some of the same problems, including stiff character animation and what is called the Uncanny Valley. 2005's Jack Jack Attack by Pixar is a much better showcase of the animation of the time. 2011 brought another dream for China, with the 2D animated film Dreams of Jin Sha. Chinese people hoped that it would be considered for an Oscar nomination for Best Foreign Film, but unfortunately it had suffered from many of the problems in previous animated films in China, most specifically, stiff character movement. It was also considered derivative of the Japanese film Mononoke Hime, or Princess Mononoke. Released in 1997, almost 10 full years before Dream of Jinsha, it featured much more fluid animation. It also was able to better convey its message of ecological harmony as well as the character animation being much more expressive. In conclusion for this video essay, I bring up the film Kung Fu Panda from 2006. It was highly successful in China, as opposed to domestically animated Chinese films. One suspects that the reason why this was so successful is because American animators better understand the playful nature of films such as Fearless Hyena from 1979, in which the previous scene was a reference. The problem with Chinese animation is that while it tries to be ambitious, it ends up being too strict and stiff, and suffers as a result. One has to wonder is if China wishes to improve its quality, that it must have a lighter spirit.